And welcome to this edition of In the Circle on D1 Softball, powered by 643. I'm Eric Lopez. Victor Anderson will join us later in the program. We're going to have a lot to get to later in the show. We're going to have Tyria Flowers, the LMU head coach, will join us later in the program to talk about LMU and the West Coast Conference starting next week, as well as her coaching in the AUSL with the Portland franchise. We'll talk about that. We'll talk Florida's big series win against Tennessee. LSU's winning in South Carolina with some umpiring controversy there. And much more. And, of course, you'll hear from Caitlin Terry, who I had a chance to talk to at the UCF softball complex as Texas Tech swept UCF. That's all coming up on this program. But, of course, joining me now, she's just fresh off the booth, as she called maybe the wildest Arizona State series that I can remember, but she's more of an expert about this than I am. That is, of course, our good friend Kenzie Fowler, of course, All-American Arizona Hall of Famer, Arizona Hall of Famer, ESPN commentator. Of course, if you watched Arizona softball this season, she's been on the broadcast with Darren Sutton, and they called a wild series where Arizona wins it on Sunday 6-4 to win the series 2 out of 3. Whew, Kenzie, you got a voice left?
I do, fortunately. Yes, there was a lot to talk about in our series that we had at Hillenbrand, and it was a wild one. So, yeah, I'm fresh off of the game, literally, what are we, an hour or two after? So, yeah, let's talk about it. It was wild.
Let me ask you with that first question. Where does this rank? This series, I mean, you played in it. I know you follow it and covered it for a long time. Where does this series rank? Because to me, this thing had a little bit of everything that I will certainly never forget. Where does this rank? Because this was as wild. And full disclosure, I went to bed early on Saturday when Arizona had a big lead, only to be shocked when I watched your intro and talked about how Arizona had a win on a walk-off hit, and no, not a run rule walk-off, but a 9-8 win on Saturday. That's why I'm saying, where does this rank all time, this series?
Well, you know what's funny is I've called a lot of this series, and it felt like very normal. Like this is what this series brings. Every time I call a territorial cup series, it feels like it's this wild. It really does. And I'm not just saying that because I can think of so many years where it was one run games or walk-offs. The one outlier was Friday. I have never called a game where it was that one-sided. Arizona State coming out scoring 16 runs. I have never been a part of that in this series. So that was the one outlier where it felt so lopsided. You had no idea what was going to happen in game two. Of course, Jalen Adams for Arizona did not start that Friday game, so you knew that she was going to be in the circle, barring any health issues, and that's what happened. Yes, of course, then Arizona goes up 8-0. Arizona State comes back and ties it. You fall asleep, and the Wildcats walk it off, and then they turn it over to Sunday, where again, it was neck and neck until the last inning.
Yeah, I only read the bed this. I had to get up early. I had an early at 12 p.m. Eastern first pitch, UCF
All right.
Texas Tech, and I thought the game was over there. So, and then Sunday rolls around. Arizona jumps out to the 4-0 lead. It appears knocks Kenzie Brown out of the game. She's pulled after 3 innings, but Arizona State keeps fighting, comes back, ties the game up. They go to the 6th. Kenzie Brown re-enters the game after, 2 other Arizona pitchers pitch. I'm trying to skip forward here, folks. Kenzie's got a lot of things to do. And then Sydney Stewart, who was walked basically the whole series, took one deep for a 2-run homer in the bottom of the 6th to go 6-4. There was a controversial play in the top of the 6th we'll get to, but what do you make of the Sunday game and the fight on both teams? Arizona responding when Arizona State giving punches, as you mentioned. Saturday looked like Arizona had it in command, 8-0. Arizona State comes back, ties it up. Arizona responds on the shocky walk-off hit. And then on Sunday, Arizona State responds, but then Cindy Stewart, who's playing at a very high level.
Well, the Sydney Stewart home run was kind of the moment for me because she had been pitched around the entire weekend. And credit to her because you could tell the strategy for Arizona State was to not let Stewart's bat beat them. And Stewart's bat is the bat that you circle. She's the All-American from a season ago, hit 20 home runs. She's on that pace again this season. And so you have to credit Sydney. She stuck to her zone. She did not expand her zone. It wasn't like an intentional walk every single time, but you could just see it every at bat that she was at the plate. It was a little bit high, a little bit out. It would go 3-0 count, maybe try and sneak a strike in there, and then see if Sydney could get herself out. And that was how it went every single at bat for the entire weekend. And so that's really a tough place for a hitter. I don't care your caliber. That's just tough to like stay mentally ready for when your moment happens. And so the key was for Taylor Beal to get on base in front of Sydney Stewart. So that way, Kenzie Brown was kind of forced a little bit to pitch to Stewart. And it was quite the at bat. There were a lot of pitches. I was kind of calling for a changeup. There was two strikes in the count. I was thinking that Brown was going to give her something low and slow. And instead, it was three straight balls with upspin. And man, Sydney Stewart just did not miss. Her hand stayed high, saw it deep, crushed it to left center field. And it just felt like that was the exclamation point for the game. And of course, you know the seventh inning is coming around. Would Arizona State be able to do it? And Jalen Adams was so tough and gritty in the circle for Arizona to pick up the win.
What level right now is Cindy Stewart playing? You've seen a lot of greats wear that uniform from an offensive standpoint. Right now, describe the level that she's in. I had her on before the season on the Big 12 Media Days and talked about last year having a great year, All-American, but she seems to have taken it to even another level.
Yeah, I think she's better this season. And the reason I think she's better is she's able to hit pitches that maybe she wasn't able to get to as powerful as she was a season ago. Thinking of like some rise balls. Maybe the pitch that she got from Kenzie Brown today, maybe she doesn't get to that pitch a season ago. So she doesn't really have a ton of holes in her swing. And I feel like her pitch selection is just elite right now. She knows that she's being pitched carefully too. You feel that, right? You know the respect that hitters are going to have for you. She's a catcher, she gets it. But is on pace to be an All-American. I expect her to be in the AUSL this summer. That's the caliber of player that she is. And I hope she's in the AUSL. So she's doing the dang thing for Arizona. And it's been nice to see some pieces around her, like a Grace Jenkins, a nice addition for Caitlin Lowe, the Big East Player of the Year, and Taylor Beal kind of sandwiched around her and have to help protect her and get on base, force pitchers to pitch to Sydney Stewart. But if I'm an opponent that's facing Arizona, that's the bat that I'm just not going to let beat me. I'm just not going to let it happen.
Big takeaway here for Arizona. They start Big 12 play sweeping but BYU team that's just been decimated with injuries in the circle. They're struggling, although they stole a game from Oklahoma State in Stillwater. So don't ever take for granted a
Saw
sweep.
that.
Yeah. So never assume. There. Run rule Texas Tech, which went viral on last Friday, only to see Texas Tech respond, run ruling them twice on Saturday in that doubleheader. And then you mentioned getting run ruled by Arizona State in stunning fashion on Friday night. Now to win the series, what does this mean for Arizona moving forward?
I think it was a huge series for them to win because it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty on either side. I'm going to be honest. You just look at the scores. You don't have to even watch the game. Just look at the scores and go, "Oh, okay." There's a lot of hitting there. There were some errors on Friday on both sides. So it's really nice to be able to win a gritty series. I think that's so good for the clubhouse. Just knowing that, yes, as a team, we may have left 11 runners on base and had to make some pitching changes and pull all the moves, but you find a way to get it done. And I also think playing at home was huge. I thought the crowd was phenomenal this weekend. It was hot today, like really hot. I think it was 102, which is unseasonably warm for this time of year. And the fans stuck it out. It was a sold out crowd on Friday and Saturday night. So I think that always plays to, Arizona. It's a really tough place to play. Ask anyone that's come in and played at Hillenbrand. The dirt is thin or the ground is hard. The crowd and at Rita is loud, and so I think that also was a big boost for Arizona, just getting their home crowd into it.
Jalen Adams, you mentioned her, didn't start Friday, started Saturday, started Sunday. Talk about her value on this team and her importance, because I think there's still some questions behind her in the circle. The youngster Riley Holder, who I know has dealt with some injuries this season. That was just she ran into a hot team offensively in Arizona State. Tough weekend there. Just speak of Adams' value there, because they stuck with her on Sunday, which had paid off.
She's going to be the arm that gets them where they want to go. She's obviously a senior here for 1 year, transfer from Iowa. And, she's got it mentally. Like she has been in some really tough places because of how thin the pitching staff is for Arizona. There's not a lot of depth behind her. And the depth that is behind her is very inexperienced, have just not been on this stage before. And she has been on the stage pitching in the Big Ten. And so she's going to get every big inning moving forward. And that's a lot. That's a lot, especially in just 1 year to look around and say, okay, I'm going to get this moment. But there were a lot of times this weekend, today specifically on Sunday, where she could have, one pitch and she could have bent or broken, and she wasn't. She was steadfast and yes, got touched up a little bit here and there, but it was always the bounce back, always the response. And to me, that screams veteran, that screams senior. And I know that her teammates just love her. Like they'll ride for her because of the work that she's continuing to put in. So if she stays healthy, she's the arm that will take Arizona as far as they can go. And then just hoping to see if you can get a little bit more out of Riley Holder. And it's tough as a freshman too, because you have a little bit of a bump here. She didn't start the season, was the debut was a little bit late, missed the first 2 weeks, then got hit in the face, was out for a little bit, comes back against Texas Tech. Like that's tough as a freshman. Those are really tough moments, and you're trying to develop along the way. So having her being the number two and getting you some quality innings is very key, but it is a very thin pitching staff for sure for Arizona.
You just described. I feel like you've described a lot of teams this year in college softball
I know,
nationally.
it's
Is it?
crazy.
It feels like there's so many young pitchers out. Like everybody's number two, number three is young. UCF, for example, obviously who I cover the Texas Tech series. Isabella Vega is the ace, who you know very well from last year in student pitcher ace. But then they have four freshman pitchers behind her, part of a big staff, but they're all young. And I feel like that's a lot of teams this year. Runs are up a full run this year compared to last year. Walks are up high, and I think part of that is young pitching. Another part of it is young pitching trying to, let's be honest, figure out some rather interesting strike zones from a day-to-day basis from umpiring that's really peculiar. But nonetheless, this is a bit of a challenge. If you've been in those shoes, Riley Holder, how do you grow in a spot where you're facing, this is the second best conference in college softball right now in the Big 12, and you're facing on 1 week Texas Tech, and you're facing Arizona State the next.
No doubt. It's, the teams that are going to get to Oklahoma City are the teams that are going to have number two pitchers that can give you a quality full game. And even maybe help start a game here or there, or close a game. Like that's going to be the difference, because there are so many teams that, yes, have one good pitcher, but behind that one arm, what is there? Developing in season, I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that question. I think it starts with your mental. I think you have to be, mentally ready to be able to watch film. It's the first time that all of these freshmen, they're all superstars wherever they're coming from. So it's the first time that they're really seeing, some adversity for the first time. And you have to be able to face the film and talk to your pitching coach and figure out how I can adapt and go week to week and learn from failure. Like you have to be mentally locked in and ready to go to face that. And that's kind of where it's going to be. That's going to be the separator for the freshmen that can have in-season development. It's going to be where you're at mentally, and can you watch your film and be okay with what you're seeing and then learn from that.
I want to go back to the Sunday game, top of the sixth, perhaps a little contrary. Ryan Brown crushed a ball to center field that scored Samantha Swan. It was called and scored as well a couple of runs on the play, but it was called a double. On the broadcast, it looked like it hit the batter's eye. You called it out. That's a home run over there. Correct. Just describe the play for those that may have missed it.
So I've watched this now because I was curious after the broadcast. I was like, I need to go back and watch this again. Live, I was so sure it was a home run. So at Arizona, there's a batter's eye right behind center field, and there's not really a gap. It is right up against the padded fence. So you're thinking a couple of inches, right, where the fence goes up against the batter's eye. And the batter's eye has a bunch of steel poles, and then the tarp is obviously in front of those poles. So obviously that was there when I played. I know that batter's eye very well, and I know the ricochets that come off of the batter's eye, and they come off pretty fast. So the ball was hit. Reagan Shockey goes up deep center. She had a great look at it, times her jump, just misses it. It looks like on the replay, it went off of her glove. And to me, I thought it went glove, batter's eye, and then padding, and then rolled down. And I have watched this replay, I have slowed it down, and I'm honestly not sure if that's correct. I don't know. It's one of those things where if whatever the call was on the field, I don't know if there would have been enough to overturn either way because I'm still framing it and I'm going, that looks like it hits the batter's eye, but is it enough to overturn the call on the field, which was a double? The thing that got me was that there was no challenge. Arizona State, I don't believe had used a challenge in the game. They had used challenges in the weekend, but in that game they had two ready to go. It was the sixth inning. So umpires could also initiate a challenge or review for themselves, and we didn't have any. So I was very caught off guard. I thought, no doubt, somebody's got to challenge this from somewhere. Um, Obviously, if it
Or
was
at
called,
least go out to the umpires and have them initiate it themselves.
well, and there was a 30-second delay, and I was watching and nothing was happening. So you would have maybe assumed that right away you have the head coach coming out giving the signal, so it's very obvious, and there was nothing. And I'm watching the clock and I'm looking at, the pitch clock, and 30 seconds go by and nothing. And then after about, 45 seconds, I think it was actually Haley Decker, the first base coach, tried to say, "Hey, can we challenge it?" And it was too late.
I watched it. I watched your broadcast. I tend to agree with. I mean, first of all, nobody knows that field better than you, so I'm going to defer to you, just like Darren Sutton did. It looked to me that what you described was correct because I rewinded it a couple times. I think it's right call. However, I don't know if the review makes a difference because I agree with it. I don't think that was such a close there that I think the call in the field's going to, it's just not conclusive enough for those. That's a term I've used a lot this year. I'm sick of that term, but that's reality. And I've seen more and more this year, umpires stay with the call, whether you agree with it or not. They're going to stay with it more times than not. It has to be really blatant. And I don't think that was blatant enough, Kenzie. So I think at the end of the day, it was not going to be overturned. I think if they would have, and then if they would have called it a home run, I don't think that would have been overturned. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. And the only reason that I was leaning a home run was how hard it came off of the padding or the fence or whatever it was. So it hit the batter's eye, hit the padding, and rolled into left center field, like pretty deep. And Arizona State, a couple of batters prior to that, had a home run swing. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Mejia, but it was to the top of the right center wall. There's no batter's eye there. It just hits the top of the wall over the head of Grace Jenkins in right field and bounces in, and it went straight down. So I was kind of having all of those, thoughts in my head about the ricochet, and the ricochet, excuse me, was very hard off of the hit from Ryan Brown in center field.
Really was. What's your takeaway from Arizona State? I know this was a team that you were interested in see live in person. We'll get to Kenzie Brown in a moment, but just overall, this team, I thought this team showed a lot of fight this series. I thought their offense looked really good and fought back from an 8-0 deficit and then fought back again Sunday. The Bats had been off to a bit of a slow start, I think, in talking to them over there. I think this is overall, I know there frustrates a rivalry. You don't like to lose a rivalry, but I think there's some positives here for Arizona State moving forward, no?
I agree. It's the best that I've seen their offense look this entire season. That was the question mark for me is was their offense going to be, good enough to help produce runs for Kenzie Brown, right? Kenzie Brown is still elite. Yes, maybe got touched up a little bit today. I still will ride with her. Like she's still, an All-American for a reason. I think she's still one of the best to do it in the country. But their offense was promising. There were times where you could just feel that the momentum was so, passing the bat mentality. Everyone was just dialed in. I loved the approach that they came out with on Friday, very aggressive, versus Arizona was a little bit more patient, saw a lot of more pitches. Arizona State said first or second pitch, we are getting our swing off. And you could kind of feel I guess the strategy from the Arizona pitching staff. They felt that, they saw that, they made adjustments as the weekend went on, but Arizona State came in with an aggressive mentality. And sometimes you need to open up your swing a little bit to kind of get things going, right? Just kind of almost like a hit and run. One of these two pitches, I'm going to swing and see what happens. Katie Chester looked great. Emily Shep had a great weekend. Sam Swong, Ashley Mejia, and Kaylee Pond. Those two are the best hitters in the lineup. Kaylee Pond has quality at bats every time that she's at the plate. She got walked a lot. There was a lot of respect for her. The first pitch of the entire weekend, she hit for a home run. On Friday was the first pitch of the ball game, and she hits it for a home run. Just kind of set the tone for the team offensively. But also, Ashley Mejia was really impressive. She has a lot of power in that three spot.
I agree. And more importantly, they got Kenzie Brown back, which we wondered for a minute. She didn't pitch for a stretch there earlier in the year from about February 27th up until the Utah series. She pitched in that Sunday game against Utah, didn't look good at all. I remember you and I texted each other like, oh, what's going to happen here? But she has bounced back. You got to see her in person here. How did Kenzie Brown look to you in person?
She looked good. On Friday, obviously, it was lighter work, not very stressful innings when your team's putting up 16 runs. Arizona did score 4 or 5 in one inning, and it was kind of a weird inning. There was only one or two hits. Arizona State was throwing it away a little bit defensively, um, but then settled back in and finished the game, and then started today. And I have to credit the Arizona offense. You could tell that they had a different game plan against Kenzie Brown. They were maybe taking a little bit more, especially down in the zone. Kenzie Brown had the Arizona hitters fooled on her stuff down in the zone, which is, you think about Kenzie Brown, you think about a rise ball. And so I think that, you have a couple of days to watch the film and say, okay, maybe we need to lay off of this pitch and hunt for something different. And Arizona definitely came out with a different game plan. I think I would have liked to see her throw her changeup a little bit more today. There's especially in the Sydney Stewart at bat. I was thinking changeup. She hadn't thrown it. There was just a lot of more foul balls happening, as will happen on a game three, right? You're not going to pitch as cleanly as maybe you would on a Friday. So more foul balls are happening. I would have maybe liked to see that off speed just a little bit more to help open up her rise ball. But her ball was still moving. She had great pop. Velo was up, was competitive. I think when she has that fire in the circle, Arizona State is a different team. So, they came back for a reason, right? She's pitching, Arizona State's down 4-0. The offense gets back in, it gives them a chance. And anytime that Kenzie Brown is in the circle, they have a chance.
And that's the key. And John Barfield, obviously the pitching coach, first year there. Do they have the arms to give her a breather, though, I think is the question. Otherwise, this is like an old school team where you're just going to ride Kenzie's arm, but, she does have injury history there. You want to keep her healthy. So I think, is there arms there that can give her a breather? I think it's going to be the key for the rest of Arizona State season.
Well, there were some bright spots with Aisa Silva, who was the Arizona transfer. And, that was a spicy moment where she comes in and has pitched a lot of innings at Hillenbrand. And on Saturday, Silva allowed Arizona State to mount that comeback. She came in for Mika Lupi, who was the starter, and shut down the Arizona offense and allowed her team to climb back in it. Of course, Arizona ultimately has the last at bats and walks it off on a infield single by Reagan Shockey. But I thought there were some good moments from Aisa Silva, so that's promising. It's the little things that you take away from a weekend like this. Obviously, it stings to have the loss, and I believe that's now the fourth straight rivalry series win for Arizona over Arizona State. I'll have to go check, but I'm pretty sure, I think it's 4 in a row. 2022 being the last time that Arizona State won. So that stings, right? And you were so close, right? It's the way that you lost it. You were just right there. You had a couple of hits here or there and could have been a different way. But I think the positives, the offense looked good, and then bright moments from Aisa Silva.
Listen, you've bought me, and I'm going to be at the Big 12 championship. If those two teams play, I'm down. I'm down. I'm going to watch. I want to watch it in person. If they get to play in Oklahoma City in the Big 12 championships, long ways to go on that. Couple quick things before I let you go. I called Texas Tech, UCF, so I got to see Texas Tech live this year in person this weekend. I saw him in Clearwater as well. We talked earlier about pitching staffs. We know about Nyjah, so we don't need to talk about her. I mean, I can tell you she stood for 30-plus minutes signing autographs, which I'll talk about later on the podcast. But Caitlin Terry, I want to ask you about Caitlin Terry. Two-way player, has won Big 12 Player of the Week twice, might win it again this week, who knows. pitched a shutout against UCF on Saturday, had 3 RBIs, hitting at a high level. Jerry Glasgow admits this was not the plan. She has literally been hitting like since the fall. You've covered her. She could be the difference maker because she will give Nyjah that rest. And Jerry's talked about that. Talk about Caitlin Terry. I talked to her, and spoiler, it's coming up later on the podcast, so I don't want to give too much away. But she feels that she's learned a lot from Jerry from the offensive end, and feels there's more in her game now that's being showcased because of that. Talk about that and the difference maker that she potentially could be for this team.
Well, she's hitting over 500, right? I think she leads the conference in batting
Yes.
average.
Yeah, going into the week. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that's just crazy. And 5 home runs. So she's got some power as well. You just never know what's going to happen year to year. It's crazy to me. She will absolutely be the difference, no doubt. I mean, just take yourself into what we saw in the World Series and the Champ Series with Texas Tech and Nyjah, and we physically saw Nyjah get tired. Like, and I have been there. Like, you just run out of gas when you don't have an arm behind you. Like, I have literally been there. And so she will absolutely be the difference. And I love the fact that it's just like a little bit extra. Like, let's lead the league in hitting too, and showcase something that maybe we haven't seen from her the last couple of seasons. So yeah, really, really dynamic team, obviously. Nyjah, also Lincoln, I think is going to be huge for them. It's not just a number one and a number two, but having a quality inning to let those other two breathe a little bit mentally. I think that's also so huge. So they're sitting very, very pretty. Um, I'm still so bummed. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Oklahoma State and Texas Tech do not play this
That's
year.
correct. That's correct. Yes.
We've got to fix that. We've got to fix that.
Kenzie Fowler, Big 12 schedule maker. Is that what we want to add that time?
I mean, I thought about this a little bit with all of the, super conferences that we have now. We're condensing more conferences with more teams. Can we have a rule kind of like the NFL does, where if you finish in the top 5 or 6 of the conference, like you have to play those other top 5 or 6 teams? Like, why can't we do that? I think it would be so good for our sport. I can't remember. There was another matchup that I was really mad that they don't play. I think it's Oregon, Nebraska. And I don't think they play in Big Ten play.
I think that's right. Big Ten. Look at you. You're on top of the schedules here, all over the place.
I always say like Nebraska is like my sister-in-law team because
Fair.
my sister played there.
But no, you're right. This is a result of the conference realignment and the leagues growing bigger.
Yeah, and it hurts the sport to not have your premier programs not match up. And it hurts them as well. Like, that Texas Tech needs to play Oklahoma State. They need those wins, right? So, and Nebraska as well, Oregon as well. I mean, you could say that for every school. So I'm like, can we just get that made a rule so that way we're not having this problem where our elite, top 2, 3, 4 teams are missing each other in conference? Because especially with the Big Ten and the Big 12, man, it's like unacceptable. They need to play.
Yeah, UCF and Arizona don't play. I want them to play, but only under the agreement that you and I meet in person and do the games together.
Okay.
If we can make that happen. Can we do that as an amendment to your scheduling philosophy?
That would be fair. Representation from each school. I like it.
Yes. We'll get you back on later in the year. We have more time and to talk about some of the other Big 12 teams. I know Arizona goes to Oklahoma State later in the year in Stillwater. That'll be a big series, and Arizona's got a young Baylor team coming up next weekend, by the way. That'll be a big test for Baylor. We talk young pitching. You'll see young pitching with Baylor next weekend. But real quick, you just called your first, I think, national ESPN game on SEC Network this past week. One of the fastest games of the year, $1:30. I barely saw you. Mississippi State up in Starkville against UAB. Talk about pitching. Former Arizona Wildcat great and a national champion, Terry Moa, doing a nice job with that pitching stuff. What was your quick impression on Mississippi State seeing him live?
I think they have 2 All-American caliber arms in the circle, and like legitimately. The stats are backing it up with Alyssa Faircloth and Peja Gould. And, the pitch development there, it's so fun to watch them. Alyssa Faircloth, the lefty, she throws with high velocity, but then also has one of the best changeups in the country that is just an unhittable pitch at times. And then Peja Gould has the best curveball in the country. I'll say that easily. Like, there's nobody that makes the ball move and dance like Peja Gould does. Talking about I need Sydney Stewart in the AUSL. I need Peja Gould in the AUSL. I think that would be a fun addition to see her play this summer. But yeah, if Mississippi State, I think they lost. Did they lose the series to Georgia? Okay,
Yeah,
so
2 out of 3 at Georgia. Yeah.
at Georgia, yeah, that's tough. A home field advantage always plays a little bit there. But if Mississippi State can make a little bit more noise offensively, you're looking at potential regional host. I don't know if they have enough because of, the gauntlet in the SEC in front of them to sneak into the top eight, but I feel very comfortable seeing them as a regional host. And that would be so huge for that program. But Coach Mowat, Taryn, my girl, she's got things dialed up. You could tell I talked to her briefly, went down to say hi, but you could just tell like she was feeling good, knowing that her pitchers are two of the best in the country and also has some depth behind them. It's kind of like Texas Tech, where you have two stars, and then you also, if you need it, you have the luxury of a third arm that is very reliable. And not a lot of teams can say that they have the depth in the circle like Texas Tech and Mississippi State do.
That is Kenzie Fowler, All-American Hall of Famer in Arizona, commentator, national broadcaster. You can see her all over the ESPN family of networks all year. Where can people find you to keep up with you on your broadcast schedule? Because I'm having a hard time keeping up with your broadcast schedule. You're on. I just tune you on. I'm look. Where is she this week?
I know. I'll be usually calling those late night West Coast games. I've had the luxury to call a lot of Arizona games. It's the first time that I've called this many Arizona games ever. I've been doing this for 11 years, and so second year in the Big 12 for Arizona. And of course, the media contract is what it is, and you have to broadcast, and someone has to call them. So I'm like, hey, can I call these games? Because why not? What else am I going to do? Sit at home? I belong in the booth. That's where I like to hang out. So yeah, it's been fun to call this many games. I will say a lot of props to go to people like yourself, where you're kind of on the beat for a team, because it's tough to call that many games of the same team in a row. You've got to find the storylines and stay on top of it, keep things fresh. So it's giving me, a different perspective. But yeah, you can follow me on socials. I try to update here and there. I threw out a first pitch yesterday. It went well, so that was a big highlight for
The
me
strike.
personally.
It was a strike.
Yeah, I threw it from the full distance, didn't do a warm up. I was like, let's just see what happens here. It's my second first pitch, so first one was a couple years ago, and got a chance to do another one. So that was fun. Fun moment.
Coming out of retirement?
Coming out of retirement.
Yeah.
Absolutely
No?
not. No,
All
absolutely
right.
not.
Fair
No,
enough.
yeah, it's crazy. I've been broadcasting for so long at this point. I'm almost feel like I'm more of a broadcaster than I am a player. It's just like it's very crazy to feel that way. But no, I stood out there and I was like, I'm good. I've played my games. We're good.
Fair. Yeah, you've done your thing. Well, it's good. I was glad you was honored there throwing out the first pitch. And I know Darren Sutton talks about your accomplishments a lot on the air because he has so much respect for you. I've enjoyed listening to both of you there. Little Pac-12 Network flashbacks there a little
I
bit.
know.
Just a
Yeah,
little bit.
no
Just throw
doubt.
in there. Hey, I know. Hey, listen. I know you got 1,000 things to do, so I appreciate you fitting us into the schedule for our yearly get together. But we'll try to get you on. We have more time later in the year. But enjoy it. Glad to talk to you and catch up with you as always. You're one of my favorites, and we'll do this again soon.
Yeah, I'll be back. No doubt. I'll be back.
All right, everybody,
Thanks
stick
for having
around.
me.
Stick around. More of In the Circle D1 softball coming up.